Okay, so um, is OpenAI's new model O1 really a game changer,
hmm
especially for, tech people like you listening? I really want to get into this. O1 sounds amazing at first, like a model that actually thinks and solves problems instead of just like predicting the next word like GPT-4 does. But here's the thing. When I tested O1 against GPT-4, the results were way closer than I thought they would be.
Yeah, that's a really important point, because it makes us ask, like, does O1 really do that much more than GPT-4, which a lot of people think is already pretty amazing.
Exactly. So OpenAI is saying that O1 is best at strategy, coding, and research. And their demo had O1 figuring out this business problem. Where should a company put their new office? And O1 supposedly gave all this insight into different cities and strategies for entering the markets, like the whole package. At first, I was like, wow.
Yeah, well, they did make a big deal about O1's chain of thought reasoning, like it can solve problems step by step, just like a person.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to see for myself. So I gave GPT-4 the same exact question. And guess what? The answers were like practically the same. Both models looked at the same stuff, gave similar insights. Even their suggestions for where to open the office were almost identical.
Huh. It kind of sounds like the difference between models that predict, like GPT-4, and models that think, like O1, maybe isn't that big of a difference. If GPT-4 can already kind of do that step-by-step thinking thing, it makes you wonder why we need a special model like O1.
Then I tried coding. OpenAI said that O1 Mini is perfect for coding because it's built for it. They showed it building a whole web app from scratch with certain things it had to do, and they were really talking up how fast and efficient it was. I'll admit O1 Mini was crazy fast.
Yeah, for sure. Speed is like super important when you're making software. Even saving a little time can really add up when you think about it.
For sure. But here's the thing. GPT-4 could make basically the same code using the same logic and steps as O1 Mini. Okay, it took a little longer, but the end result was like the same.
So maybe we don't always need those super specialized models for specialized tasks, huh? It's like GPT-4, even though it's more general, is actually way more versatile than we thought.
Okay, so next up, something everyone can relate to. OpenAI showed 01 helping someone find the best food for their dog. Going through tons of info, figuring out what nutrients are important, all that.
Yeah, I get that. It's like we all want info that's just for us, to cut through all the noise and get to the good stuff fast,
Yeah,
even if it's just about our dog's food.
exactly. But guess what? GPT-4 was just as good. It came up with a research plan that was basically identical to O1's plan. Same important nutrients, same risks, even recommended similar ways to test different dog foods.
Wow. So GPT-4 is getting really good at understanding and analyzing all that information out there. Maybe it's catching up to what we thought only specialized models could do.
Okay, so that's 3 for 3. Strategy, coding, research. GPT-4 did great in all of them. Last test. Math. Everyone knows LLMs are usually bad at math, but OpenAI said O1 was different. They showed O1 Mini solving a tough financial problem about getting the most profit from a stock option.
Yeah, if you're doing financial modeling, speed and accuracy are super important. So if O1 is really that good with numbers, it'd be a huge deal.
And it was fast, no question. It figured out the best strategy in like a second. But here's the catch. GPT-4 got the same right answer too. Just took a little longer.
So it seems like there's a pattern here. O1 is a strong model, yeah, but GPT-4 can basically get the same results on a lot more stuff than we thought, which
Well,
makes you wonder what's the point of O1, especially since it can cost more and be a little slower.
right. It's like if GPT-4 can already do all this, why even bother with O1? Well, there might be more to it than we realize. Remember test time compute. That's where things get really interesting, especially if you're into tech.
Right. Test time compute is like a new way to make large language models better at reasoning without needing to train them for way longer, like a turbo boost only when it needs it to handle those really hard problems.
So let's say you're doing something that needs a ton of computing power, like modeling a complex system or running simulations with a bunch of variables. Instead of having the model going full speed all the time, which would take a ton of resources, test time compute lets Arrow 1 only use that extra power when it really needs it for those super hard parts.
Yeah, that could be huge for certain things, especially in fields like scientific research, finance, or anything that needs to crunch a lot of numbers. It's like having a supercomputer when you need it, so you can solve problems that would have been impossible before.
But how does it work? That sounds kind of magical.
Well, without going full tech nerd on you, think of it like this. Normal LLMs are like marathon runners, trained to perform at a steady level for a long time. Test time compute is like giving Arrow 1 the ability to sprint when it needs to.
So it can shift gears and really go all out for those short bursts of intense computing.
Exactly. And being able to adjust how much computing power it uses could make a Zo 1 a lot more efficient than models that just rely on what they learn during training, like having extra gas in the tank when you hit a steep hill.
Okay, so test time compute sounds like a big deal, but is it actually better for users like us? I mean, we saw GPT-4 do really well in those other tests.
That's where it gets tricky. It's not about saying Zoa 1 is always better than GPT-4. It's about knowing what each model is good at and picking the right one for what you need.
Like, a hammer is great for nails, but a screwdriver is better for screws.
Exactly. And with O1 and GPT-4, we got to figure out when test time compute really makes a difference.
Like with that financial modeling thing we talked about,
Yeah,
GPT-4 got the same right answer as O1, just a little slower. Now, if it was a simple calculation, the little bit of time wouldn't matter that much.
true. But in finance, where even milliseconds matter, that extra speed from test time compute could be super valuable.
So for high-frequency trading or complex risk analysis or anything where speed is everything, so one might be the way to go, even if it costs more.
Yeah, and as we use AI for more and more complex things, that ability to adjust computing power is going to get more and more important.
It's like if you're building a shed, a handsaw is fine. But for a skyscraper, you need some serious power tools.
Exactly. And that's where OO1 with test time compute might be the best choice. It's the tool for those huge complex tasks that need tons of computing power.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference. But why isn't everyone using test time compute if it's so good? Why even bother with models like GPT-4?
Well, it's still pretty new. Remember, we're just figuring out what AI can do. And even though test time compute has a lot of potential, it has its own challenges.
Like what?
One big thing is figuring out how to use it with the tools and software we already have. It needs a different way of designing and training models, so it's not always easy to just plug and play.
So you can't just flip a switch and suddenly get all this extra power.
Right. You have to think about what problem you're solving, how much computing power you have, and what's more important: speed, accuracy, or cost.
So just because you have a fancy sports car doesn't mean you'll win every race, right?
Sure.
You need to know how to drive it and choose the right track.
Exactly. And it's the same with AI. Zero One isn't a magic solution. You have to be smart about using it to get the most out of it.
Okay, that makes sense. But it all sounds pretty technical. Can you give some real-world examples of how test time compute can be used, especially for us techie folks?
Sure. Imagine you're a developer making a complex AI app, like a self-driving car or a personalized medical diagnosis system. Those need to process tons of data in real time, so even a little delay can be a big deal.
So speed and efficiency are super important in those situations.
Exactly. And that's where test time compute could be huge. By only using extra power when it needs to, you make sure the model is always working at its best, even when things get tricky.
Like having a backup system that kicks in when the main system is overloaded so everything doesn't crash.
Right. Exactly. And being able to handle those sudden spikes in data could be super important for making sure AI systems are safe and reliable, especially in critical situations.
Okay, what else? What are some other places where test time compute could be useful?
Another area is scientific research, like in genomics, astrophysics, or climate modeling. They deal with massive amounts of data and complex simulations that can take forever to run.
So anything that can speed that up would be amazing.
Totally. Test time compute could totally change how we do research. By letting researchers use extra computing power only when they need it, we could speed up discoveries and make new things happen way faster.
Like fast forwarding through the boring parts of a science experiment so you get to the results quicker.
Right. And that could lead to breakthroughs in stuff like new drugs, personalized medicine, or even understanding the universe better.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But can regular people actually use this technology? Or is it just for big research labs and tech companies?
Good question. But the good news is, as test time compute gets better, it's getting easier for anyone to use, not just the big guys. Cloud computing platforms are starting to offer it as a service, so you can easily add it to your own projects.
So it's not just some fantasy for the elite.
Nope. And as the tools and stuff around test time compute get better, we'll see more people using it and doing new things with it.
That makes me think about open source development. What if anyone with a good idea and a decent computer could use test time compute to do crazy things with AI?
That's totally possible, and it's what makes this field so exciting. It's getting easier and easier to get into AI, so who knows what awesome things people will come up with.
This is all super promising,
Yeah.
but are there any downsides to test time compute? Any risks we should be thinking about?
Definitely. Like any powerful tool, it can be used for bad stuff if the wrong people get it. Imagine someone using it to make super realistic fake videos or to spy on people with AI.
So we need to be really careful about the ethics of all this.
Absolutely. As test time compute and other AI stuff gets more powerful, we need to talk about the risks and figure out how to stop people from using it for bad things.
Like, we can build nuclear power plants, but that doesn't mean we should. We have to think about the consequences and make sure these technologies are used for good.
Exactly. And we need researchers, developers, politicians, and regular people all working together to make sure AI is used to help everyone, not hurt people or divide us.
Okay, that's something to think about as we keep learning about AI. So we've talked about what test time compute is good at and how it could be used. But what does this all mean for the future of AI?
Right. Let's go back to that first question about whether O1 is a thinking model and if it's as great as everyone says, especially for people who really understand tech.
Yeah. What does this tell us about what AI will be like and how specialized models like O1 will work with more general models like GPT-4?
That's the big question, right? And I think the answer is, well, complicated. We probably won't just switch to using one type of model. Instead, we'll probably have a bunch of different AI models, each with its own purpose. It's like we'll have a whole toolbox of AI models.
Yeah, each one for a different job.
Right. You wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw. And you wouldn't use a specialized model like Zo1 if GPT-4 can do it just as well. It's all about using the right tool.
That reminds me of how computers have changed. First, there were those huge computers that only a few people could use. Then came PCs, and everyone could have one. And now we have smartphones with so much power in our pockets. Could the same thing happen with AI? Will specialized models like O1 become more common and affordable for everyone?
Maybe. As the tech behind test time compute and all that gets cheaper and easier to use, we might see all kinds of specialized models for different jobs, even personal ones.
Like imagine having an AI that helps you code, or an AI that gives you investment advice based on your own finances. That would be pretty cool.
For sure, having these specialized AI tools could really change how we work, learn, and interact with everything. We could do things we never thought possible before.
But we can't forget about the downsides. We talked about how test time compute could be used for bad things and how important it is to make sure it's used ethically. How do we balance progress with safety?
That's a tough one. We need to keep researching AI to understand it better and also make rules and guidelines to make sure it's used for good.
Sounds like everyone needs to work together on this, like researchers, politicians, companies, and regular people.
Definitely. No one group can figure this out alone. We all need to work together to make sure AI helps everyone.
So back to the original question.
Yeah.
Is O1 all it's cracked up to be?
Mm.
After all this, I think O1 is definitely a powerful and innovative model, but it's not like it's going to replace everything else. It's more like a specialized tool that's really good for certain things, like when you need a lot of computing power.
I agree. And AI is changing so fast, we'll probably see even more powerful and specialized models in the future, changing what's possible and how we think about technology.
So for everyone listening who loves tech and wants to know what's next, the message is clear. Keep learning, keep exploring, and be curious about AI because it's always changing.
Exactly. AI is full of possibilities, and it's up to all of us to explore them in a responsible way and make sure it makes the world a better place.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into O1 and test time compute. We hope you learned something new and got excited about the future of AI. Keep learning and exploring, and we'll see you next time.